Peace. This is the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. My guest today is Royal Harris. Peace, Royal.
Peace, bro. How you doing today, sir?
I am fantastic. So we just gonna get into it.
Let's go for it.
I always like to start with you give me an opportunity to just give some reverence or respect to whomever, somebody you feel need to get some love. So go for it.
I want to give reverence and respect to my little bro, Rob Ingram. Interestingly enough, he died November 27th, 2011, and actually to 26th, like today. We ended up being at a Wale concert, so this was the last time we got to hang out, so I want to give him a special shout-out on this day.
Indeed, peace. I remember Rob. He's a good brother. Good brother. Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right, man. We're going to get into the question. So, Royal, can you give me a standard or practice that you think is important to you as a man and how you live?
I think one is having a set of values that you hold dear to yourself that aren't as much about you as what you know are the things you need to do for yourself to be who you want to be, and then being comfortable with a brutally honest critique of yourself about that. So for me, when I was younger, and as you evolve through life, you kind of figure out what are those things that really lead or gravitate to your success, or you start to look at, just as importantly, where are those places you fall short. So as I got older, I started to realize if I had to kind of synthesize what are those values I hold dear that I exemplified, I came up with a desire to learn, attention to detail, and follow through. And so as I go through life, and actually also critical thinking. So it's a desire to learn, critical thinking, attention to detail, and follow through.
All right.
So as I go through life, as I look at, and it could be as from as simple as how I clean my shoes, to how I really look at being a dad, to how I look at being a husband, to how, to how I look at work. Where do I rank myself within those four? And also looking at yourself, what are the strengths that that I exemplify?
Right.
Or being able to say, okay, what's the one, when looking at why I'm not successful, what's the one you're not really hitting the mark at? And being able to actually say, without how we all have that ability to tell ourselves that convincing lie that we use to tell others so they know.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to catch yourself in that moment and say, no, and just have that moment of being honest with yourself. So, and I think as individuals, we all are going to make mistakes and fall short and be susceptible to all those natural things. It's, being able, when you're by yourself, to still be able to be honest with yourself.
All right.
And so.
Man, so let me ask you a follow-up on because the brutally honest with yourself piece is something that I resonate with highly. Mm-hmm. Did you have any particular experience or situation that brought you to understand that deeper, or is it just something that how did you get there?
I think it's it comes from a little bit of being able to be humble enough to hear and having people. Actually, I would say more so. It comes from having those people who tell you those things that you don't want to hear, but are the absolute key to why you're doing or experiencing what you're experiencing.
Right.
And being able to say, okay. And I think it's that once you having those right people, especially growing up with those close friends, or even sometimes people who don't necessarily want to see you win, mm-hmm. but they'll reflect to you what you are doing wrong. And I think also at the key, my parents said something real valuable to us when we were little. And it was, if you don't hold your head down when you get away, don't hold your head down when you get caught. It's still the same you. So it's really being able to be honest with yourself and, be able to say, well, yeah, I did this because I was selfish, or I did this because I have my own motive, right. or I just didn't even care, and being able to say, okay, and look at that. And as a kid, you hear it, and it sounds like it's an opt out. So you can kind of, I don't care, but it's not as much about not caring as much as being able to look objectively at what you do from both sides of the coin. Because right. Any decision leaves you the opportunity to end it advantageously, or possibly at a detriment. if you weren't gonna bemoan the outcome if it was in your favor, but before you went in, don't bemoan it when you don't get it because you still went in it without.
Right.
You know, and so that kind of translates into the sense, you know, okay, I can look at what I did. Yeah, that was wrong, or this was wrong, and not as much just saying it to be passing it off as much to really understand and be at peace with. Okay, I blew that one. You know, it's not going to define me because I'll not to look at a lot of stuff as we walk through life. Any event once it's over, it doesn't exist anymore. It can shape how we look at how our next reality is.
Right.
But that's kind of like tomorrow. It's not real anymore, or any as much.
Right, because it happened.
You know.
All right. Peace. Thank you. I think that's heavy, just too, in the context of when you. It's like the day you make a simple example. You riding bikes, jumping off the curb. Every day you jump off the curb, look, you do a little twig. I'm the man. The day you lose the handlebars and smash out, don't be like, man, something was like, every time was the same decision.
Exactly.
Like, just sometimes you crap out.
Exactly.
And own it. You know what I mean? I appreciate that. All right. Thank you. Our second, question I like to ask is, so relationships, broadly defined, you know what I mean? So that's, relationships, like, love and all that. Relationships, business, professional, relationship with the community, however it lands with you. Can you share something that you understand better now, where you're at in life, where maybe you got wrong in the past?
I think the one thing I can say really I've learned is to know your audience and understand that common interest everybody has. And I think for me that comes from, like, even when I was younger, I've always been a passionate person. I've always just spoke my mind. It's like, I don't care. I'm going to go 110%. But it's understanding that you can, but some people can only go 80% at full bore. Or if you go 110, some people you're going to scare them, so they're going to try to make you wreck and derail everything you're passionate about. Right. So I think, and like for me, one of the important things is I went through mediation training to be a mediator, and one of the things that synthesized for me is most people come at a particular issue or idea, or even if you look at relationships, people come from their own perspective, from their own family history, from their own point of origin, from how they've walked through life and what's been successful, what's been disadvantageous for them. So everybody has a position. And our position is kind of like our identity. It's something we guard. It's something we protect. It's something, But within that center space is that shared interest, what we all want out of it, Why we all look at this thing. And I think really being able to kind of step back and understand when people are talking or when situations are going on, especially when you have multiple people involved, is really what's the core interest that we all sit in this room about? Because if it wasn't for that core interest, we wouldn't have an affiliation. So really looking at that. And it might be we all care about the community. Okay, well, your care might be about gardening. My care might be about making sure old ladies can get home safely. Somebody else's might be the streets are clean. But okay, if we all are all of us, a better community is that shared interest. So how do we wrap around that versus getting caught up in where I come from to this situation? How do we share? How do we make it fair exchange is no robbery?
Right.
So everybody's feeding everybody. So even in relationships, and the difficulty with that is because the situation is a little more intimate, it's more personal, it becomes difficult, So, and it's being cognizant of that. Like me, I always tell people, a lot of what I say is because I got a PhD in getting it wrong the first time.
Word up.
Or being so arrogant that I found that I didn't know as much as I thought I did.
Right.
And it's coming back, being humble and saying, okay, if it's not about me, what's the greater good in it,
All right. Appreciate that. So, just something that you said in there around shared interests. How do you think, do you have any thoughts around how we can do a better job of communicating our shared interests, just either in wherever people land in community, because that's something I think I see that conflict a lot when people are supposed to be coming together, and then it's like, somebody got one perspective, somebody got this other perspective, and it starts to get to this critical point, and it's almost like y'all aren't actually communicating about what y'all here to do together as much as you communicating about what you want.
Exactly.
So what, do you have any just thoughts about that?
I always take it back to, if you strip away all the pretense, it's all about everybody want to eat. And if we all want to eat, the best way for everyone to eat is continue to make the pie bigger. And I think sometimes, especially in communities of color, where resources, whether financial or physical capital or intellectual capital or technology, are portioned out in such a way that two people might be doing similar things, and where they could leverage each other and work together, they've been conditioned to compete for that finite resource, And I think it's not really anything other than how things have been done. And I think at a certain point, we have to have the ability as leaders, or even as a community, to be able to, or a vehicle to question and say, hey, man, that doesn't seem efficient. How can we make this work together? And sometimes it's because we have so many chiefs of small entities. Everybody wants to remain a chief versus part of being on a leadership council, because even in that leadership council, then they're trying to figure out what's their position. The real position is to serve the community and make sure everybody eats. And I think power for certain people, as far as the leverage they get and the influence, is aphrodisiac. They just get caught up in it and they just love it, and it becomes all consuming. One of the things, talking about Rob, me and my bro used to talk about is this story I always give when we look at leadership, especially in Portland's African American community, and how there's never really been a succession plan. It's never been, okay, how do I hand this down to this next group to do bigger, better, faster than we did? And we always and I compare it to a village where the power is in the spear, and you have the old heads. They got the spear. They've been out hunting, and they've been out providing, they've been out protecting. But you get that younger generation under them, who's been waiting and training and preparing and being taught by them to be ready when it's their turn. Now they in their prime. But the old heads won't give them the spear. Now the old heads are a little slower. You can't fight as ferociously as you used to. So now these younger heads are faced with a dilemma. And a dilemma really means the best of two bad options. That's what really dilemma means, the best of two bad options. So you're faced with, I can starve or fall victim, or I can kill this old head and make sure everybody's cool. And this dilemma logic dictates you kill these old cats. So now you've done that and you have it, but as part of the fabric of how you look at it, you got to hold on to it now, because intrinsically these little cats for two generations behind you just realized the only way you get the power
you take,
and get the spears, cut this cat's head off. And a lot of that really rests in the fact that the old head is fearing that once this young head gets the spear, is he going to make sure I eat too?
Right. He's going to take care of me. He's going to look out for me.
And like we know, if you've been around the hood, very few of the old heads who used to take care of all the little kids, give them some money, give them some game, put you on, make sure you have some school shoes because your mama can't afford. When that cat got down and out and he was the hood base head or something, everybody's still gonna make sure he got some food. Old head got some boots. You might take him to the barbershop every once in a while, because those who raise you right and teach you how to take care of everybody, you don't let them starve, because you don't know how to eat without them. Yep. And that's the message we don't give, or even we don't even look at it that way and entrust that if I do this right, I shouldn't have to worry about is he. Because really, the only way that question is valid is if intrinsically you know you didn't do enough for him to see your example and want to give you reverence.
Right. You didn't build your own. Well, as I think is my standing vision. A lot of times when dudes is hesitant about something that seems like this is the logical thing that needs to happen, is usually they got a skeleton somewhere, if not a whole bunch of them, where it was like, yeah, but I took every time I had a chance to take advantage, I just took it. I didn't care who it hurt. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, when they be like, well, we always got to trust, and they be like, ooh, trust. I don't be trusting people. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they mind. That's what they be thinking. Yeah. We always would say, the danger in in terms of even like your people that you roll with, on whatever level of life, the danger of a person that is weak. And when I say weak, meaning that the relationship between their behavior and the truth is not very strong. You know what I mean? So a weak person is gonna try to sneak out of a situation rather than taking the heat for it, or whatever it is, and playing a role in it. And that person is especially dangerous because they know if they with you and you get into it with somebody somewhere, or even outside of any of that type of stuff, you just y'all trying to start a little business venture together. They know they done messed up the money, or they messed up their own money. Yeah. So they a little short. So when you be like, well, yeah, this quarter we don't know how it's gonna go. We're gonna try to do this other thing, and they be over there like, shit, I might need to. I gotta find a way to. Man, you know what, man? My mom's sick. I can't even do this no more. Just start lying. Start making up stuff. Like, oh, you know what? I'm trying to go back to school, man. I don't think I can do this anymore. Just be lying. You know what I mean? It's because they are so used to, so conditioned inside this framework where they're never really present. You know what I mean? Can't trust them.
I think a lot of that is learning how to be secure and be authentic with you. And I always think back to my little brother who passed away a few years ago. I used to talk to him when he was young, and I always tell people one of the most valuable ways you can be the realest dude to say no. I cannot do this, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm not ready. Because I think too often what happens, that whole thing of perpetuating those false narratives is it started out as just trying to save face. Mm-hmm. You know, like I know a lot of cats that went to jail and just turned into a rat or just compromised their integrity just because instead of saying, no, man, y'all do stuff I don't want to do, or I'm not equipped for myself to do the things at that level and be part of the consequence to that, Even if it's as simple as, hey, bro, my money, I messed off my money, so I'm not prepared to invest at the same level of y'all right now. Yeah. Not really thinking if that's your boy, he's going to say, okay, well, cool. Well, you come in with what you got. When you got the threshold, go bring the rest, and then you'll be an equal partner. But like you said, I think it's that conditioning to just want to put up the airs and put on this face and facade, especially when with the people Like I tell people all the time, I do a lot of good stuff, but hey, I'm about as good as the regular guy who makes a million mistakes. Mm-hmm. But I also think one of the things is we spend too much time in life defining people by this or that as being reality versus when it's really everybody is a this and that.
Mm. Yeah, most definitely. As I say, the truth is what it is. Like, you are the sum total of everything that's been happening around you, and the good and the bad. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which I know is a difficult thing for a lot of people to handle.
I think because I think that means one thing. Well, you have to be uncomfortable because I think either or allows it to be very black and white, and for answers to be black and white, and to be defined by this rigid group thing, whereas and is that gray area, and I think in how we live in society, too much of the gray areas where so much is, but where so many people feel uncomfortable because there's no just one set right or wrong. It's accepting that they all come together and you don't have one without the other.
And that's the, that's also the, I think about that as the reality that you're going to have to constantly be making decisions around what's going to happen. And there's the prevailing concept that, like, you're going to make a decision once, and then we're all just going to, like, the conditions and nothing else is going to change. You know what I mean? But we know the weather's different every day. Everything is different every day. It's very close, very similar to the day before, but it's a little bit different. So that means you need to accept. I might need to be a little prepared to make an adjustment every day. Is how I carry that. All right. Peace. Thank you. Third question.
Yes, sir.
So, Justin, however this lands for you, what's really important, to you right now in your life? Or it's just something that, you just feel real strongly about or concerned about or even just working on that, is important to you?
When I think, man. So what I think about what's really important to me right now, I don't know. I think I'm really focused on what can I do with this moment here, and really looking at, okay, it's like 7 billion people on this planet.
Right.
What can I really do to affect as many of that 7 billion in my moment here as possible? And really understanding, like, most people don't ask themselves that question. And some people are probably like, hey, bro, why would you even think like that? But and I think it's because the largeness of the question just brings so much into my head, and then it means, okay, so if I can't really do that, what can I do around me? And I think for me, it's like and it's funny, I work in the same neighborhood I grew up in. Still work 3 blocks from where I grew up as a kid. And I can think of probably like maybe a few thousand people I work with, just working mental health, working with at-risk youth, working with people, getting people jobs. And I think about all that, just one cat from, Garfield and Jarrett. Then I think about some other stuff and doing work around the state, impacting hundreds of thousands of lives of people and the resources they get. And like, okay, so I done got to be 100,000 there in my impact, And it's just really but it's really understanding that if you really set bigger goals, it's easier to achieve big stuff. And I go back, and I don't know where I heard it, but it was something I read one day that really changed my perspective. And it was basically, if a man went out every day to feed himself, he could go hungry. If he went out to feed 10,000 people a day, he'll never starve. And it just made me think, if you go out the day happy for crumbs, and let that be as good as it gets, if you can be satisfied with, well, at least I got some crumbs, man.
It's my crumbs.
But what if I just go out and say, okay, if I got to feed 10,000 people, a bad day, it's got to at least be 1,000 loaves of bread. I might hit 400 loaves. But hey.
Right. You started out with a big enough vision that if you come short of the vision, it's still a big impact. Right. What do you think? I mean, if you can just have a follow up to that, for our community specifically, when you hear brothers reluctant to think that big, that broadly in terms of their impact, what do you think? What's behind that? What do you think it feeds that? Like, nah, you can't think about nothing like that. I don't do that.
I think one of the challenges is you have to have people who think like that and even have moderate success, just so you can feel like, okay, all right, this cat tried it. I mean, it sounds like some BS, but he tried it. He got a little bit. I know I'm smarter than him. Right. I might be able to pop it off a little bit more. So, but I think it's even that one person who's willing to not get it, but to put it out there, and at least to say that initiative can start, But also, I think, in looking at Portland as a native of the town, is really looking at how relatively young our African American community is. Like, my daughter lives in St. Louis, and you got an African American community that's almost 200 years old. Yeah. Like cities like DC, like ours, the foothold didn't start till after World War II. So that still makes us in my mom's lifetime.
Right.
So when you look at it like that, and I think also because of Oregon's racist history, which is just like saying America's racist history. Ours is just, we tied it in a different knot. We put a green and gold bow on it, but it's just America. Yeah. But I think because of some of the exclusionary practices in a small number, we've always kind of had this little us mentality. And what can we do? It's just a little bit of us. And I say this honestly, kind of like in Portland, I think, because I think a lot of times race issues and oppression come because the real issue is that fight for resource. Like in Texas, where you got a few million black people, you have enough black people that you really and you also have the Latino community. You have enough people in aggregate that really what's happening there is a battle for finite resources between these groups. Whereas here, it's not enough for us that white people feel that they're going to lose out on any of their super finite resources. So I think some of their tactics are more just traditional race exclusionary versus that fight because we're afterthought. Yeah. It don't mean that they ain't racist. It don't mean that they don't still do those beautiful things we call American racist. But the motive behind some actions that seem racist really more about class. We just kind of like the benefit and bonus to it. It's like they doing this to each other, but as a bonus, we can stick our thumb on the black folks too.
It gets them too. You know what I'm saying?
So
side benefit. We ain't got to spend extra time. We don't got to have a separate meeting.
But we have a small enough number that we don't have that resource threat, which means we do have access to certain places, whether it be government based with offices or influence, or whether it's the opportunity to move in and out of some private industry in different ways and be able to afford it opportunities because we're not seen as a threat to take over. So in that way, if we were to mobilize with a coherent strategy, we could be like other small communities vis-a-vis the Jewish community, where our influence is far disproportionate in a positive way to our number. But I think that also means we have to take on that old adage where a whole generation has to till the soil and plant the seeds and do all the protective work, knowing they'll never get the shade of that tree. And I think because our community's immature, we haven't really sat down and really had that kind of longitudinal conversation.
Man, that's a powerful one there. I think it's hard, and I do this just because I'm a history major, and that's what I did in college, and I just think about the world that way even before college, like the longer arc of time with things. But I think that for most people, like you said earlier, in terms of like the past, like doesn't exist anymore. So it's like it's hard to think of a present circumstance and go like, well, if there's not been there's the numbers that provided a different strategy for survival for being black in Portland and Oregon in general switched at a time when I think it would maybe, and I think there's probably other communities in the country that have a similar circumstance where you had a smaller mass where it's like, the more successful strategy is to be swift, don't make too much noise, make enough noise to get what you need, get the right people, right places, but then there's a number you hit where it's like, nah, you know what, we need more than that. And I think this town, particularly in this region, is in that number where you need more, but all of the other stuff that needs to change is still changing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think things that since I've been here, things have happened that reflect the beginning of that change. But I think, especially when folks are not from here and they come here, if they don't have any critical analysis of where they from, they'll just be like, they'll assume, which is the default in the way racism affects people of color, is you'll presume, personal responsibility and a failing in the people is the reason why they not doing this or that, as opposed to they haven't actually hit that place where, the intrinsic motivation to do things this other way was a way that made sense to a critical mass. You know what I'm saying? So if you coming from, I'm from New Jersey, where you got, Delaware Valley along brings it to Delaware. You know, black basically as long as there's been America, there's been black people milling around.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you have enough different types of communities and spreads of communities where you can have all these, you know, kind of different ways that people make social contexts that folks live in.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have other places where, and even within New Jersey though, there's some communities where it's like, yeah, like we was the third black family in this town. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
we ain't really at the place where we could just be jumping out on certain things just yet. You know what I'm saying? Or at least I'm not the one. You know what I'm saying? You know
I'm
what I
not
mean?
going to be that
I'm
one.
not going to be that one. Y'all want to come down here and jump out on stuff, feel free. But we don't typically contextualize our own experience that way.
Yeah.
We just go, if it ain't, you know, either if it ain't revolutionary enough, we go something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
If it ain't...
if it's too militant, what's wrong with you?
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always... It's always defaults to personal responsibility as opposed to actually existing in a system that your natural responses might be, you know, certain things.
And it just still goes back to that whole binary, this or that versus the end. You know,
indeed.
And I think that, you know, even here with us in Portland, you know, I think because there are a lot of qualities about Portland and Black Portland that are cool. They're unique and quirky, but, you know, they're cool. Because I think one of the things, being a native Oregonian, that trips me out, and especially when I've been other places, is how you can tell in other communities, especially where you have large black communities, black people feel uncomfortable talking to white people.
Yeah.
And it's like I've been places where, you know, I'm an Oregonian, so once I get out my partners, mamas, and I've got to talk to somebody white.
Yeah.
So I've been out of town. Hey, excuse me, sir, can I talk to you? The first they looking like, you sound just like me. And they're talking, and then this black person is like, you sound just like him. And then but it's a trip, and it's like I have family members that have moved out, and they think, and one of the things that they find out is because of living here, the ability to interact with people of different colors and feel comfortable in their skin doing it is something that they notice that, you know, and for them a lot of times it's something they leverage because it creates opportunities, and they understand I can still authentically be me because I'm gonna get around y'all, and y'all gonna say I'll sound like them anyway too.
Right. Yeah. And you have enough of a foundation that it's not like I'm being somebody weird. It's like, no, I'm this and I'm that.
But I also think one thing about Portland is it's unique in the sense that as people of color, if you really pay attention, you really learn how much white America doesn't notice about themselves. Because you really realize a lot of stuff that we think about it, that we contextualize as everything about their experience with life because we're part of it is racial. Really one of the privileges they have that make addressing white privilege so hard is they really have no clue. And once you watch them, you can start to be like, and I don't mean it like the day in like a negative sense, but more just an observation. You start to know that never crossed. You know, like you talk to a kid as a parent, and you say, and you see that blank stare, and you know this really never did cross your mind, and they looking like, and they still on what?
They're like, what you talking about? Dad, father, what you mean?
And you know, and I think sometimes that's the trippy part with watching that white black dynamic around, you know, or getting mad or feeling all that. Sometimes they clueless. And it's because they're part of a culture that's created systems that they stay just as clueless, so that they don't have to ask the questions of themselves and like, hey, I just noticed this is my, I just engaged in a microaggression. Why was that? You know,
exactly. Well, and that's, I think, the one thing that's always is frustrating for me is our comfortability assigning, and I'm probably going to mess it up, but basically mistaking ignorance for malice, right? And like that, you know, malice requires like I woke up this morning and I decided I'm gonna do something to hurt Royal.
Yeah.
As opposed to I woke up this morning and I was thinking about waffles, and then when I went to the stove, Mount Royal looked just like this other dude I had a problem with.
And so I'm going to take it out
So
on him.
Royal said something. I thought he was talking to me, and I jumped on him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't wake up this morning thinking about you, but once I got mad and I saw you, I did something. You know
I always say like this. I grew up in an era. Here are my two favorite people on TV. Archie Bunker, George Jefferson. Because both of these cats, opinionated, don't care, say off-cuff stuff. Some of it's just asinine. Mm-hmm. But they keep it 100.
Yeah.
Now, the thing was, both they live next to each other, neighbors. Hey, man, don't talk to me. Hey, keep that white stuff over there. Keep that. But at the same time, amicable. And you also understood, wasn't no power dynamic. Wasn't nobody trying to hurt nobody. It was just two jerks. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we forget we live in America. America is a country, white, black, brown, red. We're all jerks. I was at a conference in Seattle about 3 weeks ago, right? True story. It's me, like these 5 Canadians from Ottawa, white, walking through downtown Seattle, going to eat to this pizza place, right? We get to a light. You know how, like, in America, if the light is green, but it's just orange, you see the little stop sign hand, but you look up, you see that light's red, that light's green. I can't walk till that turn yellow. So I look up, I look over, ain't no cars. There sure ain't no police cars. I keep walking to a person. All 5 Canadians just waited. And so I'm looking, I get to the middle of the street. I'm like I'm by myself. What they doing? Then I looked at the light. I was like, they're Canadian. Yeah. We get across. I sit there and wait for them. What was y'all doing? The light said walk. The light said don't walk. You're not supposed to. That's not supposed to.
You gotta wait.
I was like, they was like, we're Canadian. And they were like looking at me like, oh, he's American. It's just that
American.
thing. I was like, I'm being American. We like Jimmy Johnson, and we ain't cheating. We ain't trying. You know, and we're abrasive. And all of that. And I think that's it. As a culture, what's happened is we forgot. You can only be as tough as the punch you take. You can't really just point your finger and bash everybody if you can't take a little of it back. Yeah. You know, when it comes to being a jerk, you know, sometimes, and I think one thing I've learned is, especially as a person of color, before I really determine if somebody's racist, I'm gonna ask, were you a jerk? Were you prejudiced? Were you ignorant? Or were you just an a-hole? Mm-hmm. And generally, you were probably one of those before it was about race. I got a pretty cool job, nice house. Kid went to elite college. Other one's just regular teenage problem kids doing the right thing with jobs. You don't have, if you working at the gas station just talking crazy to me, you don't have any of the power for your bigoted propaganda to really impact my life. Matter of fact, I might know your owner because I might play golf with him. So quit playing with me.
Indeed. You know what I'm saying? Playing games.
You know, and I think we just got to remember where we sit with a lot of stuff. People ain't being as much racist, you know. And I think, now we can say they're being bigoted. But, you know, again, going back to the power of words, racism is about systems. Bigotry is about behavior, you know. You know, I think a lot of times where we lose up, we call it, and people understand that when they say, "Oh no, you're not using that word right," so that invalidates your whole belief and your whole agenda. Right. You know, we got to use the right words to get the right agendas across.
Can you give me a little more on that? Just like, what are some of your thoughts around, you know, the words that we choose to use when we're engaging with systems and structures? What do you think are some thoughts?
My most notorious pet peeve is the word address. Now, we always have some program, some project, some government initiative to address a social determinant of health, to address violence, to address the rampant use of drugs, to address the opioid epidemic. By definition, all address means is to acknowledge a word or acknowledge something and develop an initial plan of action. Keyword, initial.
Right.
So, say for example, this is the classic one. A city might want to do an initiative to address gang violence. So they're going to spend this money. Part of it, a lot of it's going to be to let everybody know they're going to address gang violence. They're going to figure out, we got some gangs. They're killing people. They're using guns. Now, we need to get the guns. We need to get them jobs. And we need to tell them that's bad. That's addressing the problem. Now, to redress a problem literally means to look at something not going right and turn it around and correct it. So, that would actually look like we're going to actually go to the gang members, let them know this behavior's not right, ask them what can be done to help them correct that, put those things into place, measure the success, punish those who don't want to participate because we still have to do that for the reduction of gang. And we're going to keep measuring until we reduce the number to 0 because the redress, that's what we want to do. So, or another one, we want to address, and this was what happened to me. I was working, doing some work, and I was part of a group, and they said they wanted to address social health disparities of social health, excuse me. And I was like, okay, why do you want to address them? We're sitting here talking about them now. What do you mean? Address means to initially look at. Do you want to fix it, or do you want to perpetually talk about it? Oh, so we changed that because here's the difference. Say, for example, everybody who was part of that, who was part of a conversation about understanding the difference, saying we wanted to redress it, correct it. Say everybody gets fired tomorrow, right? And the next group come in. What do they have? Policies, procedures, mission statement, goals, and objectives. What are they going to work to? That document. What if that document says address?
They're going to start over.
And what are they going to do? Just go just far enough. And then, again, government is the only place where you can be rewarded with continued work by explaining why what you did didn't work. That's the beauty of addressing an issue.
You just keep, oh man, you start over. We got to look at it again.
The initial factors that are leading to this are changing. We still need to fix it.
Yeah. I think that's powerful. I think I was, I appreciate it. Well, let me say this. Because as you were saying, I was thinking about just anything with the "re" in front of it, we tend to not really be that into as a society. You know what I'm saying? Like we ain't really trying to go back and fix nothing. We ain't really trying to rehabilitate. You know what I'm saying? We definitely ain't trying to.
But see, that's a beautiful word too, because here's the thing about rehabilitate. Most rehabilitation puts the onus on the person. Like you flunked. Now, say for example, I've never had adequate schools. I've never had a stable home. I've never been acculturated to the norms of people who want to be successful using traditional means. Why would you say I'm being rehabilitated? Why would you put rehabilitation money into me? Because you don't want to take the time to assess my initial habituation. Because again, if you want to habituate me, that means you're going to look at my humanity and maybe say, okay, let's see what he needs. Let me see. I have to listen to him. Right. It has to be about rehabilitation. Let's see if you can get it this time. Right.
We're not going to restructure. We're not going to redo the whole framework around you. We're just going to try to get you to change. Indeed.
But we don't want to look at broken people in the sense that we created a system that created them fractured in the first place.
Right.
We want to say, you did it to yourself. But, even like interesting factoid, maybe a little digression, maybe not.
No, go for it.
The criminal justice as an academic pursuit was started by the police chief in Berkeley, California in 1929, between 21 and 29. And one of the things he did fundamentally as he created, part of why he created it was purely for law enforcement to take it from being seen as a blue-collar job, like the beat cop traditionally, to more of a gray-collar job with white-collar components to legitimize and professionalize. No problem. But as he created the academic pursuit, one of the things that they really wrote in early was that any individual who comes into the criminal justice system is inherently deviant. I have a niece, she goes to the University of Washington, she's taking criminal justice. We were having this conversation, I was telling her why I really have problems. Because the other part is criminal justice started at UC Berkeley, and maybe all the way up until the 60s was maybe in like 5 or 6 colleges in the Midwest, which is why criminal justice is so popular. The biggest place for criminal justice, the industry, Ohio. But, and what happened is, there's this education fund, I think it's the law enforcement education fund got created, took it from maybe 15 to 20,000 a year, graduating with a criminal justice degree. Within 25 years, 100,000 a year all over the country. So, but again, that's indoctrinating 100,000 people a year who legitimize a pedagogy based on making a segment of the population deviant without factoring in any of the things in the system that created the need to commit crime.
Yep.
And, you know, this is how we, and this is why words are important, because a lot of these attitudes that seep down where we have experts doing this, we don't even realize the origin, you know, and looking at how, like most people, you tell them, you know, why does your PO think you're deviant? I don't know, because some guy in the 20s made sure that for the next 70 years, it's going to be important to look at it that way.
Yeah.
You know,
we got to find the deviant if we're going to deal with this issue.
Guy,
there's a deviant present. We're going to find him.
Yeah, and heaven forbid we add the layer of race.
Right.
Say, I told you in blacks. Say, can you imagine crime?
Right.
Because ever since you can look at criminal justice academia all the way back, criminals are deviants. So if criminals are deviants and blacks are criminals, blacks are deviants.
Yeah, and also blacks are deviants by default.
By default, you know,
y'all came out deviant. Y'all was deviant when you got here. So,
you know,
so since you are the criminal black, it's all the same thing.
And see, but again, this is why, you know, for us understanding how language is, you know, really the big, actually written language is the biggest component to structural racism, to oppression, to colonialism. And I think that's another word we don't use enough right now in our society, which is colonialism. Yeah. Because especially as we get these multinational companies doing things that are really, especially if you look back at history, that are really looking at like some of these real big families in Europe back in the day as they really colonized the world.
Yeah, I think. I mean, you know, especially right now, I hear people bandy about the term, you know, kind of throw it out there, and you got they want to decolonize. But I struggle sometimes if folks understand the way, even just the way, you know, a colony worked, you know, where an imperial state worked, the way the James was it Jamestown, you know what I'm saying? You know, at the time Jamestown became Jamestown, you know, I can't remember the nation's name, but basically the people whom had control, and that even though they were, you know, somewhat hampered and debilitated by exposure to, you know, disease and whatnot, they still had enough control to be like, nah, y'all go over there on the worst part of this area. Like, y'all want to be over there? Yeah, y'all go ahead and be over there. You know what I'm saying? Now, over time, other things happen, situations, circumstances change, right? And there was enough, as I tell people, when you look at, I want to say it's, I think 1491 talks about this, or 1492. Like 8 out of 10 Europeans that initially, you know, were sent over here just died. Yeah. From all kinds of stuff, from disease, whatever, right? But they just kept pumping them out. Like, you know, somebody over there had the power to be like, no, y'all go ahead.
Y'all keep going.
Hey. Y'all go over there and check that out. Let me know what's happening. Yeah. I'll check on y'all.
When enough of y'all don't die, I'll come get with you.
We'll be through. You know what I'm saying? I ain't going, but he going. You know what I'm saying? And you was over there and you ain't had no opportunity. You thinking, well, this my shot. You know what I'm saying? And the way resources can motivate people. And then folks, you know, when we get into a situation with them, going back to what you said earlier, around, dude being disrespectful at the gas station, and you like, wait a minute, I can't address you. I can't redress and deal with you as if you was, a person in a position of privilege and power to like make this broader decision about your life. Because you actually out here working, trying to make your move.
Exactly.
And you thinking, you think that being disrespectful to me going to help you make your next move.
Yeah,
and it's sort of like,
or it's going to put me back.
Right, it's going to throw me off. And it's like, actually, dog, you need to talk to. You need to talk to you.
Yeah.
You need to talk, who owns this place? You know what I'm saying? Or what was the school you went to that didn't work out the way you wanted? Or what other things happened? You know what I mean? Because that's where the power lies in your own life. You know what I mean? But we are not always equipped to encourage people to have that level of detail thinking about the world.
Oh, no. And I think that's one of the big things I always challenge folks to remember. Think of yourself as a global citizen. Just because you don't travel a lot don't mean the earth ain't your turf. You know?
Yes, sir. Man, we got to get out of the country more often, too. We're going to talk about that another time. But, all right, appreciate you. Well, we close to an hour, so we can pivot into movies or music or books.
I don't know. I ain't really seen too many. Hey, do you watch the Marshawn Lynch show on Facebook?
I have not watched it, but I've heard about it.
Marshawn Lynch has the funniest show on Facebook. And I think, the cool part about the show is it allows people to see him and the folks around him, how he defines his image. He's still that dude from the hood in Oakland. Mm-hmm. You're going to get your cuss words. You're going to get your N-word like 50, 60 times. It's cool though, but then you also realize, hey, this dude has a degree in social work from UC Berkeley.
Yeah. No,
and then
every time I've seen Marshawn Lynch on a show of any kind, right? Especially after when he first retired. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that we understand in the community, regardless of where a person's from, right? Mm-hmm. We can hear the style and the vernacular and the manner that they engage in the world, but we can also pick up the intelligence. Yeah. Right? So even if he's all the way Oakland dude and he, doing all the things, you're like, that dude knows stuff. Yeah. Right? Like he's not like exactly. Other people will look at him and go, oh, he's a fool, he's this and that, he's silly, then Skittles, It's like, that dude knows stuff. Yeah. And as soon as first time you hear him talk, you're like, oh, he all right. Yeah. Y'all ain't got to worry about Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is going to be cool.
Hey, man, when I realized that cat never spent any of his football check money, all he's been living on his whole career is endorsement money, I was like, yeah. And then he's owning stores in Seattle, Oakland. Oh, man, it's like, but the show is hilarious, man, because it shows him, and I think we forget, this cat's in his late 20s, young 30s. So he's really just a young cat who's really like got his mind together, got his money. I can have fun. I can bring my homeboys around. And you get to see a lot of the cats around him, just regular town cats who might not, have the talent or the resources to go to school, but pretty intelligent, pretty funny, hilarious. His show, he got cartoon skits. They done went to the arcade. He done did donuts and messed up the car when they went to the racetrack in Vegas.
I'm gonna have to watch it. I heard about it.
Man, it's hilarious. I mean, and it's like just letting you see a young brother that's really doing this thing, and it's like, but it also feeds into that whole Marshawn Lynch attitude. And like I say, the best part is he's allowed himself to really own and define the narrative of who he is, as much as the media has tried to shape it, because he didn't want to be part of their platform. Yeah. So
indeed, and I always appreciate that. I think that's as you stated earlier, the option to say no, right? They like, we need you to talk. Nah, I ain't trying to do that.
I mean, 'cause I don't want to talk to
we need you to talk though. Nah. Like, and I'm Super Bowl? Nah. I ain't Super Bowl again? Nope. No. I ain't talking.
Hey, you know who else I'm liking? Here's another thing. Did you see the stat on how much media LeVar Ball has gotten out of this little tit for tat with Donald Trump.
I haven't seen the stats, but it's got to be.
They said he has earned just the back and forth and the exposure has, if you could put it into to money between digital media and TV, it's been $13.2 million worth of exposure. You sitting here calling this man a fool, and he's leveraged you for $13.2 million worth of advertising, and a lot of it to people who don't know it. I bet LeVar would love a whole bunch of people to just go out and buy all his shirts and burn them.
Right. Burn my shirts.
Burn them. Matter of fact, baby, put them up $15 first. So that I want y'all to burn them. We only got a hit. I can see LeVar going, I only got 1,000 shirts and we're going to be out of business.
Right.
And they buy them all, and then he come back with, I got 10,000 more shirts.
I mean, I think I watched the one video him talking with the dude
on CNN. Yeah.
And the thing I appreciated about it, for all of whatever people feel about the bed is consistent. He like, hey man, I don't have to take no shit off of y'all.
Nobody.
Like, let me be clear. I don't got to, like, you got an opinion. That's cool. I got one too. Let me tell you about it. You know what I'm saying? And, and for what the situation is as a father, managing that, like in real talk, you got one son in the NBA, you got a son who's supposed to be a college basketball player out here, doing whatever he's doing in China. Which, mental note for anybody or...
Don't steal in China.
Pro tip, don't steal in China, dog.
Don't steal in China.
In general, don't steal
especially
overseas.
at the luxury stores.
Right, don't steal in China, y'all. Okay, thank you. Enough of that. And then you got this other, you got another child coming that everyone is, has this...
That's 16 years old and has his own signature shoe and drives a Lamborghini. Oh, yeah. And all his sons throughout school were 4.0 students. And he has a college degree himself from Washington State with his wife, who he's been with since college.
Yeah, like, ultimately, it's
and Donald Trump wants to try... Wait. And LeVar just moved into a 16,000-foot house. And you got to watch their show, Ball in the Family. That's on Facebook, too. But, so, he's the fool. He's doing all this. But he's the fool.
It's that they could be like, oh, he's an embarrassment. I'm like, embarrassment of what? Embarrassment. I mean, if he cool, I'm cool. Like, him being him don't make me not me.
Hey,
so who's he embarrassing?
I'm gonna tell you this.
He
if you really
himself.
Think about it like this. I mean, this is kind of uncool to a whole generation of folks, but I think LeVar is like a better all-American black dad than Bill Cosby, Cliff Huxtable. Hey, LeVar been with... Now, somebody might say interracial dating. Okay. But he got 3 African-American sons. And here's the thing. We ain't hearing no cheating issues. That was Bill and Camille.
Yeah.
We ain't hearing no...
Quaaludes.
We ain't hearing no Papa Molly stories. None of his kids is on drugs.
I mean, and for all the things LeVar do
the only thing he do bad is he says stuff that makes white people not like an angry, loud, aggressive black guy. But they love Stephen A. Smith. Yeah. Well, I would say this about him, and I know he does say some off-brand stuff as it relates to, his just his whole I could have beat Jordan and all that. People feel some kind of way about that, but ultimately, I ain't never heard him like. And somebody correct me if I didn't hear it. I've never heard him really bash another African American person in public or even the people that he didn't get along with. I haven't heard him particularly bash them. Like he had the thing with Charles Barkley and whatever. And his opinion about that Charles was saying certain stuff because of money and da da da. That's not the same thing as saying Charles Barkley's an asshole. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so to the degree that I can respect the ethic of, as a man, as a person I am, regardless of where I land in the gender spectrum, I can say how I see the world and what I think, and I do not need to. I don't need to curtail that in an effort to ingratiate myself to you. Yeah. If you don't agree, we could just try to figure out what we're going to do with each other if you don't agree with how I feel. See, I think that's cool. Yeah, I like the way he just put, hey, I'm a man, I'm a black man. If you don't like it, you don't live in my house.
And I think part of it is in this very, very PC world where we want to ingratiate, and I call it the world now we live in, where everybody gets a first place participation trophy. There are still some of us who really say, no, you really didn't win. You're a loser.
Yeah, you lost, man.
And, it doesn't mean you're not. And I think for me, it goes back to, like I say, LeVar is like, but he's my age. So he's from that Archie Bunker, George Jefferson kind of era. Like, I'm going to tell you what I feel, And if you don't like a pen, and I think that's what it is. In that same kind of dysfunctional way that the abnormal like Trump, it's I cocky enough to have an opinion, and I'm not going to apologize for being opinionated. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think sometimes there is a place for that. Yeah, I just think in America, if you're a black man, they think the place for you is somewhere else.
Right, yeah. Right. Like, you need to have an opinion that we all can agree with. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I think for us, developing the comfortability to state our vision mm-hmm. in the world is something that I feel we have to work towards mm-hmm. because we, as a product, going back to that earlier thought we had, as a product of survival and managing circumstances, mm-hmm.
Most
we
definitely
will make the collateral decision sometimes to be like, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to walk away, or I'm not going to say this, I'm not going to say that. You know what I'm saying? I can't afford to lose this job right now.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna go in the bathroom and hide for 20 minutes.
And just sit here and think about why I can't kill everybody in here, especially him over there.
Man, he know it, man. He better hope I'll never be in charge around here. He gonna be the first one out. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I understand the reality of managing those dynamics.
Most definitely.
But within the circumstance of, you being who you are, and in this base, I mean, I can't imagine, somebody going at one of my kids, in a public setting. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I don't know. It'd be very difficult for me, and but also I'm gonna say what I need to say because they more important than you. Yeah. Whoever you is. You know what I'm saying? What's my man? One of my favorite scenes of many from Coming to America when he said, I'm going to break my foot off in your royal ass. You know what I'm saying? He's like, hey, hold up, Jack. Like, we was cool and you president. Whoa, you ain't going to disrespect my daughter, B. Like, I don't care who you is.
It'll go bad now.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it'll go bad.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that culturally sometimes, it's almost like people feel like you can't have that and be like nice and gracious. Like you can you can be both. you can.
The world is more and than or.
Yes. Heard up. I think that's.
Here's a question I got, man. Back kind of on it was a Thanksgiving question.
Okay.
We're doing, my brother-in-law, his nephew is there from California. He's like in his early 20s. And, eventually as we listen to music, the question comes up. Top 10 rappers all time.
Top 10. Ooh. 10 is a lot.
So we kind of expanded, because we kind of said 5 was a given, we got, and the only difference with us out here, 840 is top 5 all time. There's no definite, I mean, as longevity, it goes like this. So here's kind of, it was Pac, it was 40, Jay, Scarface, Nas, and Pac.
That's a strong 5.
No, this was the 5. Now here's where it gets tricky.
All right, sure. Give me the back 5.
Now, the back 5 is kind of like fluid because people, because Jadakiss came up, Big came up. Me personally, I put Big in that 11 to 15 range just because he didn't really have a big body of work.
Okay, yeah, I can hear that.
But the one was, I got to put Rick Ross in the top 10. I think his body of work is big enough now that you could pull out at least 20 that make you go, this cat's nice. I mean, classically nice.
Okay.
Because me and my friends, we fought for a long time, but have you heard Santorini? You heard Santorini, Greece?
No, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I am not a Rick Ross. I have not heard enough of his work because I've listened to certain songs and heard other things, but I haven't listened enough of his work to be given a definitive opinion. But I can hear it. I can feel
the
you.
cat shot. Even in just on that one, he's shouting out Matulu Shakur, Afeni. I mean, the dude, and I think part of it is he has that whole down south D-boy. And then it was the whole plagiarism of the name.
Yeah.
But when you just listen to the body of work, and I think the ability to craft a narrative
around who you is.
around just varied subjects. And I think the other thing that puts him up there, this dude has a lot of incredible music behind these words. And I think sometimes we forget it's a lot of dudes. Really, without that music, they wouldn't be as classic.
Indeed. I mean, I give it off you put me on off the cuff top 10 of some sort. I ain't putting in them. No, I mean,
Yeah, once we get out of five, past five,
so
it's kind of like
let me
any drop.
just get some analysis on, because then I'll get. So like somebody like Nas, I love Nas, but Nas ain't picked good beats. A lot of times.
True.
There's so many Nas.
There were a lot of primitive beats
I'm
involved.
like, Nas, what's up with this beat though? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and then I try to be honest about, at least with my own things that I like.
Mm-hmm.
That with MCs, for me, they are always whatever their best work is to me is what they are to me.
Okay,
right?
that's a valid look.
Their other records, they might be cool. There's a couple songs, ooh, that song's kind of whack. Like I don't weigh those as much in my evaluation of how I feel about them.
Mm-hmm.
So even and I'll give you an example in a context of someone like, I love Pac. I like Pac's best work. I'm not like a Pac Pac dude, but I know enough Pac to not be like, oh, when people go, well, who's better, Biggie, Pac, da da da. Like, Pac is nice. Pac had an amazing capacity to engage and resonate emotionally with people from all kinds of parts of America.
Yeah.
That no one else has ever.
Oh yeah, I forgot one that I had to put on my list that I could kind of boot Nas with.
Okay, and
I got to put it, and that was it between Nas and
Eminem.
But I would, after listening to what you said and really thinking about,
so
I got to put M in the top 5.
Yeah, so that's why I try to be, at the in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
How I'm feeling, because to me Nas is Illmatic, and most of the second album.
Yeah,
and then all the rest of the stuff is cool.
It's cool, but it's not.
But I remember very highly, with everything in Illmatic highly resonates with who I was at that age, what I was doing with my life, and where I was going. And everything else is like, cool. One like, oh, this nice song. Some other ones in there, and somebody who I put in, and I we can go out here and arm wrestle about it. Black Thought is one of the greatest rappers in the history of rapping.
I can get,
and I tell people all the time.
You know what I
go
would
find me the bad verse.
You know what I would say with Black Thought? Black Thought is in this special category called real effing MC.
Yeah,
and I think like Jay's a hot MC, but Jay's not a real MC.
Yeah.
And it's like Black Thought is like a few cats in that real MC, because I think you got to really be on that hip hop chitlin circuit in 2017 to really get like. I mean, it's a lot of cats. No disrespect to battle rappers like Joel Ortiz, a real MC. Even Royce, I would say Royce not as much rapper, but real MC. And I think. I think sometimes cats. That's how people like Black Thought don't always get all the shine they get.
Yeah, and I understand that.
But when you say it like that, yeah, he's a top. I think outside of May, there's anybody on the top 5. Black Thought could kind of come in and tap him on the shoulder and say, "Nigga, check out."
It's just one of the things where I'm like, if well, I look at the other thing I try to evaluate artists by. And it's also from Justice retired rapper, mind state. Like, who, if somebody tell you, and which is something I appreciated about that one record Kendrick made a couple years ago when he was basically said in the record, like, if I'm on a record with you, I'm trying to be the record. Everybody say, I did the best verse on this record.
Yeah.
And every MC, if they being honest.
That's what you want.
Even if that's your man. Even if that's your best friend. I made music with my best friends in the world. I wanted to have a verse. my skill level wasn't as good as one of my, my closest friend at the time. But I was be damned if I was going to be like, I ain't going to try.
Yeah, I'm not going to just lay down.
I'm trying to, I'm trying
That's
to.
like if we hooping, we're not going to play crunch. I'm not coming out to finish third and get 11 out of 21.
You my man, but I want to beat you. You know what I'm saying? And that ethic in terms of, so I look at, and that's one thing I applaud Jay on, because, it's a lot of rappers ain't trying to get on the track with Eminem. Stone facts. They like, I ain't trying to have this white cat blast me, blow my doors off.
Jay was courageous enough to get blasted by a white guy on his own album. That was kind of nice.
On my seminal record, my record that was like, man, Jay, you bridged the all your worlds on this record. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, Pac, same thing. Pac get on your record with you. Pac cool. Pac like, yeah, come on, let's get on the record together. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. You know what I'm saying? I think. And that's one thing I give props to Biggie to. You know what I mean? I think the challenge with Biggie too is that he body of work. You know what I'm saying? Like if you just evaluating, and I heard a good couple weeks ago analysis of the way Biggie rhymes, and it was on the Combat Jack show. Respect to Combat Jack and everything he's going through right now. Get healthy, brother. And I'll find it. I'll put it somewhere. But basically, brothers, the cat was saying, he was like, when you listen to Biggie verses, how many Biggie's verses start with one rhythm and end with a whole different rhythm, but it's the same verse? And he's like the only person that he knew that could really do that. I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, you're right. I ain't never heard nobody else do that way. Mm-hmm. So I think, stuff like that becomes factors. As somebody, like I know E40. I tell people, I'm from New Jersey. I know E40. I know intellectually, I know E40 has a body of work that is emblematic of his where he come from. Mm-hmm. That a lot of folks resonate with, but I don't know enough of it to give a fair evaluation of E40. So I just take your word for it. I say, y'all tell me, and then I hear some E40 songs every once in a while, but he always, the songs that would trickle out to us would be the real, I guess. This is the song we put out to get national attention, mm-hmm. which would be like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm confused. I don't know. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna keep dancing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let the track in because I don't. When I go out, to Richmond or even Richmond, right? Yeah. When I go out there,
from Vallejo, but
Vallejo, pardon me. Yeah, he from that, from the Bay, that area. Then I can tune in to where he come from. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I think. So let me see. Do you want me to give 10 real quick?
Yeah, I'm here.
Give me a 10. All right, let me get 10. All right, I'm gonna go. All right, let me see. I'm gonna do Jay-Z. I'm gonna do Nutz. Nutz still get in there for me. I'm gonna put Black Thought in there, like I said. Put Most in there. Mm-hmm. I like Kendrick enough. I put Kendrick in the 10.
Kendrick a little young for the game, but I can see him being.
I feel comfortable.
He's like a
10 alternate.
Yeah,
like you gonna be in the 10 one day.
Yeah, you can see it.
Let me see from our age coming up, the Genius, mm-hmm. G-Rap.
Cool. G-Rap is a classic. That original gangster music.
Rakim.
Yeah.
Where am I at? Am I at 9? I don't know if I could pull Chuck D out separately.
Chuck D is Cube, like in this special list.
I'll put Ice Cube in there for today.
Yeah, Cube is
That was 10, right? If I wasn't 10, y'all let me know.
Yeah. So here's another question.
Okay.
Who do you consider your seminal rappers? Just those paradigm changers. Because we were talking. And the reason I came in, we were talking about top tenors of influence, and I had to say Ice-T. Because I was thinking, man, if you don't have 6 in the morning, a lot of this stuff don't happen. But so I'm thinking like Ice-T. I think about all the way back to the cats out of Philly.
I'm in Schoolie D.
Schoolie D.
Yeah, I'm from Delaware Valley. Schoolie D.
Glamorous Life.
Cool C.
Cool C.
Oh yeah, that was our joint.
That was man.
Yeah,
that dude. Hey, that dude was like one of the precursors of just flashy fly rapping.
Definitely. I would say, on the extra, just like, man, he just said that on the record. Schoolie D. he the great granddaddy, all that.
Uncle Luke. I think Uncle Luke is the superhero of the game.
Yeah, Luke and them.
I like when Luke was saying I started all this on a war show.
Oh, yeah.
He is the real king of the South. I remember Luke was out here in 87, 88. Hurricane down. Playing Luke at the party all night till 3 in the morning, drinking Old English.
What's the other one? I mean, in terms of either some others, I would say style-wise, I mean, in the way that folks rap, I mean, Rakim is still up there. Because, I mean, like I said, he got people off of that A-B rhymes to the boo. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you rhyme the 6th and the 8th word, and then the 2nd and the 31st. You know what I mean? You're moving all over the place with the rhyme pattern. On some, let me think of somebody I was thinking about in the 90s.
In the 90s, who really? Nelly.
Yeah.
Nelly made
for all the, and I
Nelly
remember
made
actually
Country Cats cool.
late. I remember I had before I moved out here. Like I had my lady and my son were in California, and my great grandfather's brother, my grandfather's brother died, and I wanted to go to the funeral. So the car we had, it didn't have a tape deck, something. Basically, I had to listen to the radio, and all from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's 300 miles from Philadelphia. People don't know that. They think Pittsburgh and Philly.
Ain't y'all like cross state from each other or something?
It is, but it might as well be like going across a whole nother part of America. It is not the same. You know what I'm saying? So, it's all like top 40, top 100 stations, country or whatever. And the Nelly joints was like riding. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah. All the Nelly joints was just jumping in. I was like, you know what? This ain't bad, man. I'm out here, man. Go ahead. Nelly, do your thing, St. Louis. You know what I'm saying? I need to come out there and see what y'all talk about. Like, it was... I like when people come from wherever they come from, because even though folks will, especially with, with all different regions, but with the South, people will lump all of the South as just the South. You know what I'm saying? And it's sort of like what Scarface doing ain't the same thing as what Nelly doing, what Luke was doing, what, you know what I mean? And then,
shoot, just even in Houston, what Scarface doing ain't necessarily what truly what Bun B and Pimp C was doing, or Paul Wall or Chamillionaire. I'm gonna tell you another just paradigm changer. Mac Dre.
Yeah.
The D.R.E. Sometimes I think, man, if this dude wouldn't have passed, music would be totally, because he just like, and I think it's because he just had white kids going black kid crazy.
Yeah, and it's sad, cause right. I mean, I like a couple I heard other people in music talk about Mac Dre, but being on the East Coast, just like getting Mac Dre records wasn't necessarily easy.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So the first times I came out this way, like, I got a tip like, "Yo, go." I went to Amoeba in Oakland and in San Francisco, and they're like, "Yo, go see what's in the Mac Dre section." And it was like 20-something records in there. I was like, "God damn, this brother got mad." And it was, this was before I didn't want to Napster all of the brothers' music. I'm like, I don't know where to start. I need a roadmap.
Yeah,
So somebody tell me where I could begin with this, but I could say, I'm like, yo, you got 20-something records.
All the way back to Young Black Brother back in the days in like the late 80s.
Right.
Yeah. And then older he got, and as he evolved, and it was just, man. But it was just watching that wave and that groundswell, and to just see somebody, it's like, I would say he's a lot like Cam in that whole, just kind of creating a whole culture, not just around that look and that swag and all that, and just getting, and then bringing all his partners on to ride the wave and showing them how to ride the wave.
Yeah, I think that's word. Well, thank you, man. See, that's got me on some one to grow on. I'm gonna have to go dig up a few. So, and I like to try to at least my current position. If I ain't really heard their music, because I know people like take turns banging on some of these different artists, and I'll be like, man, I ain't really heard your music. So if you stink, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I ain't really heard.
Hey, have you heard Cool Nutz album? Terrence, his newest album.
No, I haven't heard.
Gotta hear that band. I've been pumping that for like But I'm driving my brother's car, so my car is down. So,
Okay.
and
So
that's all he had left in there.
That's what he got in there.
But you know how when you had that rental car and you was silly enough to only bring one CD and you forgot the others at the so now all weekend you riding that one CD.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like 4 days in, I'm like, hey, now part of it is my cousin, so I'm kind of biased, but
Word up, well, I had to check for it.
But if it was crap, I would have just never brought it up. We would have stuck to the regular hip hop list. I gotta, he's officially the king of Northwest hip hop. Pole Hop is coming up. If you got folks out there in the town, look up Pole Hop, POHHOP. He's been doing it for many a moon. He got some sick collabos on his joint. He got him. He got Nipsey Hussle. He got Slum Village. He got 40. Dre Steves, man. He had some local folks. No, I'm missing somebody because I didn't have the liner notes to look at. I'm just kind of
don't take it personal. If you
don't take it personal. I'm just a fan. I am not part of his A&R staff.
Right.
I'm just a fan.
Indeed. Word up. I appreciate you, Royal. Word. I think that's a good summation, man.
Right on, man. I appreciate you, man.
Before we wrap up, you got anything for the good of the order? Anything you just want to make sure it's said before I close this out?
Oh, man. Just thanks for having me here, man. Folks, stay positive. Enjoy your holiday season. Get ready for the new year. Everybody do your best. Just be a millionaire or at least 100,000 if you can. You got to start small.
You got to start somewhere.
But enjoy that. Enjoy the folks around. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Roy, for joining me.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Peace. This has been the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji and my guest, Royal Harris. Peace.
Peace.